What's up? What's up? What's up, good people? It's your man Jay Free. I see we outside the box again in the garage, chopping it up as usual, discussing today's topic from an outside the view perspective, outside the box point of view and perspective, where we challenge people to look at things and not approach them from the normal traditional way of looking at it, but to look outside the box and to think above what's normally presented. Discussing just regular topics every day. The other day, we had the conversation where we talked about the uh, white woman who was killed by the black officer in Minnesota, and we just simply pointed out a couple things. We immediately talked about, what would be the backlash or the result since it was a white woman now and she was shot by a black officer, in light of all of the situations where blacks have been gunned down by white officers, and officers in many cases have been allowed to go free, or have been allowed to overlook charges or whatever may have they've been able to walk, getting off on paid leave and whatnot, and so on and so forth. And so today I just wanted to share a video before we get started. So I just wanted to set up. So we're gonna share this video, and in this video we just gonna point out, we're gonna highlight, because now we got the police chief speaking up in regards. So I'm gonna play the video, and then we'll get into a little bit of conversation in regards to it. All right.
Justine didn't have to die. Based on the publicly released information from the BCA, on our squad cars, you will find the words, "To protect with courage and serve with compassion." This did not happen. Having the information that is publicly available right now, while recognizing there is an open BCA investigation, I believe the actions in question go against who we are as a department, how we train, and the expectations we have for our officers, the actions and judgment of one individual. I want to assure Justine's family, our community, and those in Australia that I will do everything in my power to make sure due process is followed and justice is served. I spoke to Justine's fiance this morning, and I told him I was sorry for his loss and that this did not have to happen. And again, Justine did not have to die.
Now, I don't know if y'all heard what I heard, but I'm gonna play and I'm gonna pause now again as we go back through, because what you have to understand is, again, not attempting to be controversial, but just simply pointing out particular issues and trying to bring the light so I understand it can be awakened to a lot of things that's going on before us. Now, we've had numerous incidents over the last couple years. We can go back to Trayvon Martin. We know before then, but I'm just talking about more recently, that have been going on a consistent, repeated basis, where things have been more highlighted by mainstream media. And so I'm saying we can go back to a couple years ago to say Michael Brown, Trayvon Martin, but more importantly, Michael Brown, because Trayvon Martin, technically that wasn't a police officer. Zimmerman wasn't a police officer, but Michael Brown was killed by a police officer. So now, from Michael Brown till our present day, all of the situations that we've had where people of color or otherwise have been killed by police unjustly and unrighteously, even right here in Minnesota, where Philando Castile's case, the cases were just dismissed against the officer and they were able to walk, in the case where we clearly saw where the brother had a right to legally carry his firearm. He had given warning to the officers that he was carrying a firearm, and after giving warning, they just immediately went into a tyrant and a rant. Now, I understand, a lot of things that are being propagated, so that's why I'm trying to bring to our understanding to pay attention to what we see. So now, in light of all these situations, like I say, the same chief was in charge doing the Philando Castile case, but in all of these cases where officers have walked, Walter Scott, like I say, the list goes on and on. Freddie Gray, Eric Gardner, continual case after case of brutality and unjust discourse by the officers against people of color. Sandra Bland, and the list goes on and on. And now in every situation, in every case, as we've stated before, not only do the Blue Lives Matter protesters show up in support of the officer, but also you have certain Klan organizations that show up in support of the officers because they say their life is so challenging and it is so threatening. Not only that, but the moment that the incident happens or occurs, 9 times out of 10, what you have is the media begins to put out an image of the African American or the person of color. They begin to put out an image. You know, they show mugshot pictures. You know, they show all of the different things to immediately begin to discredit or begin to make his image look tarnished or tainted. In other words, to justify the ends to a means. So before we ever even get to a case or before we are able to find out any information, you know what I'm saying, they immediately begin to try to address it through the media to try to move public persuasion. And now this is in situations where we have evidence and footage. In Philando Castile's case, his girlfriend was sitting there recording on Facebook Live. So we have video footage that clearly showed some of the events that occurred. You understand what I'm saying? In other situations that have occurred as well, we've had Walter Scott and so on. We've had video footage. Now, this particular case, there's no particular video footage. And even in spite of video footage, the media begins to demonize the victim. But now notice in this case, the police chief immediately steps up and says, Justine. She addressed the young lady by first name as though she had a personal relationship. She immediately addressed her by saying, Justine, she didn't have to die. So notice the change in the difference in approach and opinion from now that this is a white woman that has been shot unjustly. See, we're not justifying what the officer did. We're talking about the difference in approach. A white woman now who was shot unjustly by the police, but now look at all of the address and everything that goes on, because we're going to get in a little, we're going to show some other things that have occurred, because since this time, as of yesterday, the police chief has actually been forced to resign. They called for her head. They done got her step down. Now, I ain't seen, not even officers don't even get fired after killing us, but now the chief has stepped down. But like I say, we're going to get into it. Let's hear what she says again.
Justine didn't have to die.
Again. Notice she said very quick, Justine. She identified her by name. Justine didn't have to die. You know what I'm saying?
Based on the publicly released information from the BCA, this should not have happened.
Based on the public released information by the department, by the federal crimes investigation or whatever the initials represent. She said, based on that information. Now, again, we watched Philando. Everybody saw Philando Castile's girlfriend's footage. Everybody saw the Walter Scott footage. Everybody saw the Eric Garner footage. Everybody saw the Freddie Gray footage. Everybody saw or heard events that occurred in Michael Brown. So you see what I'm saying? And the list goes on. These are things you could see firsthand. We already saw what happened before it hit the news, and they immediately throwed it out. Now here's the police chief saying this, even though there's been no public information, but immediately Justine didn't have to die. And based on the information that I've seen collected by the civilians already, this was definitely unjustified. You see the difference in the tone and the approach as to who the victim is and who the perpetrator is. Now, mind you, not only is he black, Somalian, but he's Muslim at that. So pay attention to what's going on around us.
On our squad cars, you will find the words, to protect with courage and serve with compassion.
I had to take a note of that because she said on our squad cars, you will notice to protect with courage and serve with compassion. Now, most squad cars got words on them where they say something in regards to protect and serve or something in regards to that manner. And in every single one of those situations, none of that was presented in the case of the African American. None of that. When it was a black man getting gunned down, nobody got up. No, what this same police chief, when it was Philando Castile, didn't get up and say, well, based on the information that I saw, this was just a brutal murder, and the officers had absolutely no right to fire at this young man, especially considering that his girlfriend was right next to him with a baby in the back seat, and they could have risked shooting anyone. It appeared there was no threat or danger at all. But see, that wasn't what she said. That wasn't the approach when it was Philando Castile, because it's a black man. It needed to be. See what I'm saying? Same police chief, same city, but now a white woman gets gunned down, and she immediately, Justine didn't have to die.
This did not happen. Having the information that is publicly available right now, while recognizing there's an open BCA investigation, I believe the actions in question go against who we are as a department, how we train, and the expectations we have for our officers. These were the actions and judgment of one individual.
Now, that's what I'm saying. See, now mind you, you see what she did. Mind you, she instead of, normally it's Blue Lives Matter. We all together. We stand in one regard. Normally that's the take. But instead of Blue Lives Matter, she said on the side of our cars, it says protect with courage and serve with compassion. And that's not what happened. She said we train and we prepare to handle things in a just manner. She said this was just one rogue officer. This was just an isolated incident. This was just him acting alone and by him own self. Now notice the separation. Can I say something? Yes, sir, absolutely. I'm joined by, I got my man in the building, old school. I'm gonna just leave it at that. I ain't gonna put his name out there, but we got a little wisdom in the building. Go on and share with us, my brother.
So what makes that police department so different from all the others?
In regards to?
With all the notes that they have that police are supposed to do and obey by?
It don't make them no different. That's what I'm saying. They're all the same. The only point, the only reason why the point is brought is because all I'm doing is pointing out the difference in approach. See, this same woman was the chief, like I say, when Philando Castile was murdered, as well as when he just got off. The officer was just acquitted just within the last month or so of his case. This same police chief. And so now all we saying is, notice the tone and the approach is different, because now it's a white woman that's been killed by a black officer. So instead of supporting her officer, see, when it's a black guy, we got a video camera that say the officer was wrong, but she gets up and says, well, we don't have all of the information right now. You know, everything's not been, there's a lot that goes into the investigation. So we're waiting until we make sure that we have all of the details to come to our findings before we jump to any conclusions. So right now, officer so-and-so is on paid leave, but you know, we stand by our officers because we know that their job is tough. They have a rough road. They deal with a lot of pressure. The officer felt, based on what we have, the officer felt threatened. See, this, what I'm saying is that's the approach when it's a black man. The approach is that they beat around the bush and cover for the officer. And what I'm saying is now, when it's a white woman that has been shot and there's a black officer done it, immediately he's thrown to the wolves. Immediately there's a complete separation. Oh, this was just a rogue officer. He didn't go by what we train and what we teach. Well, what you train and what you teach is the same thing that happened to Philando Castile in the same city. See what I'm saying? And so what you train and what you teach is what all police departments train and teach, which is bigotry. You know what I'm saying? Separation and division, and to be bullies of your authority. You see what I'm saying?
Let me say something.
Yes, sir.
That is to show you how divided your country is, man. The racial tension that carries on among the needy. It's only the needy people who take the crap at all times because they don't have much of a choice.
This is what I'm saying. This is exactly what I'm saying. But see, this is why this is so important to bring to light the people's understanding, that they pay attention. See, we're dealing with a psychological. It's called a psyop. So it's psychological operations. It's yes, mental. It's mental warfare. Exactly, mental disturbance. And so people are unaware of what's going on. So that's what I'm doing. Is I'm bringing to light. You see what I'm saying? I'm bringing to light people's understanding in regards to what's going on out here, because people are blinded and not paying attention to what's going on. So all this is simply doing is taking advantage of the opportunity as it presents itself to say, hey, pay attention and see. That way we can become accountable.
Hope they pay attention.
I mean, yeah, yeah, real talk. I mean, you know, we can't be responsible for what all do. No. Yeah, I'm gonna play the end of this one.
I want to assure Justine's family, our community, and those in Australia that I will do everything in my power to make sure due process is followed and justice is served.
Right now.
I spoke to Justine's fiance this morning, and I told him I was sorry for his loss and that this did not have to happen. And again, Justine did not have to die.
Now, she said that she would do everything in her power to make sure that due process is carried out and that justice is served. She talked to his fiance, and she spoke with his fiance, and in speaking with his fiance, she told him again that she did not deserve that and that she didn't have to die. So again, we looking at this woman again is the verbiage that's being used, because she says everything in my power to see due process and justice served. Now, my question is very simply, what makes this case any different than Philando Castile? Why did Philando Castile not deserve everything in her power that due process would be carried out and that justice would be prevailed? Philando Castile and his family, why did she not talk to the young lady that was in the car next to him, whose daughter now has to grow up, and with the remembrance of the trauma that she faced, why was she not addressed and said, hey, I'm gonna see to it everything in my power that justice is carried out? But instead, we just watched the officer walk within the last 2 months. Within the last 2 months, we just watched the officer walk. You see what I'm saying? Now, in this situation here, when you look at the differences in the things that we're facing, now, when we talk about the difference in approach from a black officer killing a white woman, as opposed to a white officer killing a black, now watch this. This is the difference in approach.
One of her officers shot and killed an unarmed woman. It was 1 week ago that Officer Mohammed Noor shot Justine Demond. On Friday, Chief Janee Harteau resigned. But as Jamie Yukas reports, the pressure is now squarely on the mayor of Minneapolis.
Now, I was reporting because it was a few days ago when I first started talking about the story about what happened. So I mentioned it. And so yesterday, I saw this video. I saw the previous video where the chief said what she said. So I said, well, I'm going to address the chief's response to show. And so now, just a little bit ago, as I was pulling up that video of the chief, I found out that the chief just resigned last night or yesterday. So no, it ain't even the pressure. You know that resign is a fancy word of you got fired. You know what I'm saying? They quit so that they don't get fired. You know what I'm saying? And this is what we point out is, look how quick it happened though. You see what I'm saying? Now, in all the other cases and situations that we can speak up to and that we can address concerning police immorality and the things that have gone on, ain't not one officer been fired, or not one officer, so, you know, far as I know, been convicted of any crime. Most of them have gotten off scot-free. Most of them have gotten paid. In fact, some of them have became more lucrative after the fact. You know what I'm saying? Zimmerman, who wasn't a cop, he done made more money and became more famous for killing Trayvon than previous to killing Trayvon. You see what I'm saying? But exactly. But now that a white woman has been killed by a black officer, boom, they off with her head. The chief's head got to go. And now they even saying, we don't even want the mayor to be the mayor. Now, this is the power of the people. And I know this is the power, and we know this is the power. But what we're saying is the energy and efforts of the people only get pissed off when it's directed towards that. See, in our ignorance, we will allow injustice to happen to us, but then we will stand up when it's happening against our oppressor. So now a white woman dies, and now black people want to get up and yell, we don't want the mayor, and fire the chief. Excuse my French, but where was you niggas at last month when they was letting Philando walk?
They didn't see that one.
I'm gonna play a little more, man.
They didn't see that one. They didn't
The
have
deputy
time
chief
for that one.
and chief of staff.
Listen, we don't want you as our mayor of Minneapolis anymore. We would like for you to move out of our city. Your department has terrorized us enough.
You see what I'm saying?
Idiots.
We don't want you in our city. Where was he at last month? Like I say, when they was firing Philando, when Philando Castile's murderer was getting off, where were they at?
Pennywise and a pound
And
foolish.
see, and this is why I say we have to pay attention, because now
Hard to teach them.
I kind of flipped the script now, though, because now I show where not only are they not waking up, but how much of it is even real.
No.
See, they're trying to push public opinion. So this could have not even happened. This could just be another ploy to piss black people off.
Yeah.
See, I'm playing both sides now. I got people looking from all kind of angles now, because this could just be a ploy to get black people pissed off by putting it out in mainstream media.
Yeah.
I don't know that this woman died for real. I don't know that an officer really shot her. I wasn't there to see it.
Right.
You know, and you can't trust everything that the news say. So, like I say, I'm just I play devil's advocate. I try to play both sides to get, like I say, my thing is outside the box. I'm just trying to help people to think.
Hey.
I give my opinion and give other opinions, but this is just to make people think. You see what I'm saying?
Every story have two sides, dude. So you might as well do it that way.
Yes, sir. And that's how you have to approach it, just to make you think. Just to make you think. But one thing is for certain, is that there's definitely, this is not right in itself in the way that it's being portrayed. I'm gonna play a little bit more.
Protesters shouted at Minneapolis Mayor Betsy Hodges and called for her to step down as they took over the podium at a news conference to discuss the resignation of Police Chief Janee Harteau. Hodges returned later to tell reporters she would not be stepping down.
I share people's frustration about the pace of change in policing and in building community trust.
Chief Harteau resigned Friday, 6 days after the fatal shooting of Justine Damon. The 40-year-old Australian called 911 last Saturday to report a disturbance outside her home. But later, Damon was dead. Officer Mohammed Noor, sitting in the passenger seat of the police cruiser, fired his gun past his partner in the driver's seat, killing Damon.
Justine didn't have to die.
On Thursday, Harteau sought to distance the department from Noor's actions.
I believe the actions in question go against who we are as a department, how we train, and the expectations we have for our officers.
That wasn't enough for some city leaders, including Mayor Hodges, who asked for Harteau's resignation. That neither of the officers responding to Damon's 911 call had their body cameras on has raised even more questions about the department.
Through this incident, we learned what some of us already knew, is that the body camera policy was screwed from the get-go.
First woman to lead the Minneapolis PD had come under sharp criticism before. The 2015 shooting of Jamar Clark, an unarmed black man, during an encounter with police, led to weeks of protests. In that case, we're not charged.
Exactly.
Officer Noor is currently being investigated by the state. For CBS This Morning.
Now, tell me, why is it that he's being investigated by the state and the other officers in the other cases were not charged and will walk free? This is what we're saying. What is it so different that now the chief's job is in jeopardy and she's being fired? What's so different now that the officer is being distinguished as operating outside of traditional values and principles of what we stand on, because we stand on courage and serve with commitment and protection? What happened to that in all the other cases? And again, like I say, my job or my desire It's just simply to spark interest in the mind of the viewer or the hearer, and just to get you to think for a minute. Pay attention to exactly what's going on around us and in front of us and outside of us. All right. It's your man, Jay Free IC. Again, another episode. We outside the box, man. We chopping up today's issues and topics, and we keeping them relevant. Y'all be easy, blessed, focused, love, and light. Blessings and peace.